disproportionate use of force and other human rights issues. Okay, so these are the challenges that we need to face as a result of the outbreak of pandemic COVID-19. Next, please. There is also a risk that some states may utilize emergency powers, okay, in order to consolidate executive authority at the expense of the rule of law, suppressing dissent and undermining democratic institutions, especially where courts and other oversight bodies struggle to perform due to COVID-related restrictions. So there is a need to avoid enduring harms to rule of law principles and fundamental freedoms. On this premise, it is important to highlight the legal measures to curb the spread of COVID-19. Next slide, please. So the power of the government, especially in Malaysia, to impose restriction measures is derived from this act, the 1988 Act, called Prevention and Control of Infectious Disease, 1988, whereby the minister is given wide powers, okay, to prescribe the measures to be taken to curb the spread of the infectious disease. Under this act, the non-compliant with the prescribed measures would be an offence which can be compounded up to 1,000 ringgit, or if prosecuted, can be subject to imprisonment and fine. And of course, there are a lot of new regulations and offences enforceable with the assistance of the police in response to the threat. So those are among the legal measures, okay, immediate legal measures that has been taken by Malaysian government in order to curb the spread of COVID-19 and to ensure the stability in economics as well as society. Okay, next, please. And in October 2020, very recent, 23rd October 2020, the temporary measures for reducing the impact of coronavirus disease 2019 was introduced and come into force, okay, on 23rd October 2020. This act is famously known as the COVID-19 Act 2020. So this COVID Act is part of the measures introduced by the government of Malaysia for individuals and companies economically affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and is aimed at reducing the impact of the pandemic. Okay, so this is the prompt action taken by the government of Malaysia to introduce this act. Okay, although there are issues or there are comments by the public or by the citizen that Malaysia took quite a longer time in order to introduce this act. However, the introduction of the act itself has posted or has given some kind of relief, okay, to the public as well as individuals and companies, as well as to the society at large, especially in economy. Next, please. So these are the three most important parts that has been discussed by the COVID-19 Act. Okay, the first one is about to address the inability to perform contractual obligation. Okay, we know that as a result of the pandemic, okay, some of the obligations under the contracts cannot be carried out. Okay, and it will cause the breach of the contract itself. Okay, however, because of this act, COVID-19 2020 Act, okay, some leeways has been provided. provided to the parties of the contract. So the first part is about addressing the inability to perform contractual obligation. The second one is this empowers the government to modify Malaysian legislation. Okay, there are a few or a lot, we can say a lot, it's about 16 legislations that has been amended, okay, in order to respond with the COVID-19 pandemic. And the last one is addressing the inability to perform statutory duties and obligations or to conduct statutory meetings. So these are the three important focus of the Act in order to ensure the smooth running of the economics in Malaysia during pandemic COVID-19. Next, please. Okay, the first one under Section 7 of the Act, okay, it's focused on the, whereby Section 7 provides that if any party is unable to perform any contractual obligation under contracts specified in the COVID-19 Act due to the measures prescribed, made or taken under the Prevention of Control and Infectious Disease 1989, the non-defaulting party or parties to the contract cannot exercise their rights under the contract. So the specified categories are, among others, is the construction work contract, lease or tenancy of non-residential immovable property, and the third one is a religious pilgrimage related contract. So these are the specified categories, okay, whereby if the parties unable to perform the contract, the other parties, the contracting parties, cannot exercise their rights under the contract. So these are the relief that has been granted, okay, by COVID-19 Act, okay, whereby the parties, the non-defaulting party or parties, cannot exercise their rights under the contract. Okay, another interesting part of the COVID-19 Act is, please, next slide. Okay, is the modification to the legislation. It involves 16 legislations altogether, and among others has been listed here. Okay, about the Limitation Act, for example. Okay, for example, the COVID Act, okay, seeks to extend the limitation period for bringing the action to 31st December 2020. Okay, as we all know that the limitation period for civil litigation is 6 years. Okay, so if the expiry of the limitation periods falls between 18 March 2020 and 31st August 2020, this section, okay, has extended, okay, the limitation period until 31st December 2020. So this somehow or rather give a time, an extra time, okay, for the parties to the litigation, okay, and the other modification is on the Insolvency Act 1963, whereby a creditor, okay, under this act shall not be entitled to present a bankruptcy petition against a debtor unless the amount of debt owing by the debtor to the petitioning creditor or creditors in aggregate is at least 100,000 ringgit Malaysia. This is an increase from the current threshold of 50,000 ringgit. Okay, previously, okay, before the outbreak pandemic COVID-19, okay, if you are in debt for 50,000 ringgit Malaysia, okay, a bankruptcy petition, okay, can be filed against you. Okay, however, okay, because of the pandemic, okay, the aggregate is extended, okay, to 100,000 ringgit. And these are the other legislations. Okay, for example, in Hire Purchase Act, the repossession of goods. Okay, the repossession of goods has been extended. Okay, in Consumer Protection Act, okay, the period of time in credit sale arrangement also has been extended. Okay, so to name a few, these are the legislations that has been modified, okay, in order to respond to the unexpected occurrence because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of labor or employment law, okay, it also has its own response towards this pandemic. Okay, for example, in Malaysia, we introduced the employment retention program and a wage subsidy. Okay, Social Security Organization, or SOCSO. Okay, this ERP, Employment Retention Program, was a temporary financial aid, okay, worth RM 600 ringgit a month, okay, to be given to eligible workers and employers for a maximum period of 6 months. Okay, we know that because of the pandemic COVID-19, there's a lot of people who lost their job. There are lots of people who do not have a salary. So this program provides provide a financial aid of 600 ringgit per month, okay, up to a maximum period of six months. And because of the employment contract itself, so the payment of full wages, okay, is continuous, okay, according to the contractual terms in the employment contract. Okay, so in the employment contract, there is force majeure clause and also frustration of the contract. So the employment law itself, okay, corresponded to the pandemic COVID-19 and try as much as possible in order to help the employees as well as the employer. And also in this situation, the structure, the government has structuring a strategy for redeployment program retrenchments, whereby the retrenchment is at a very minimum level. Okay, workers will be exposed to reskilling and upskilling programs, okay, in order to help them to be ready and prepared, okay, for the next challenge during the COVID-19 pandemic. The next slide is about the strike, how to reconcile between this impact of COVID-19 pandemic and also the impact of in labor law or employment itself. So there is a need to strike a balance between right. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, because it is unmute for a while. Mute for a while. Okay, so in this situation, there's a need to strike a balance between the rights of employers and employees. Okay, both it is necessary to save both the business and jobs at the same time. And in this concern, litigation or court litigation is not an ideal solution in this unprecedented situation, whereby there is any disputes arise. Okay, parties are advised to resort to alternative dispute resolutions, ADR, okay, either negotiations or mediation, and try as much as possible to avoid civil litigation, because it will cost a lot of money and also time.
Dan saya bilang ya, itu pengacaranya itu wawasan hukum.
All right, so I come to my my last slide now. Okay, this is the suggestion that the kind of legal paradigm in the pandemic era. Okay, in this time of unprecedented situation, the law, the characteristic of law itself must be advanced and innovative. Okay, as advanced in and innovative in the sense that the rule of law must correspond to the situation. Okay, um, the second one, clarity in the sense that the guidance should be clear. Okay, if the government propose any policies, any measures, any guidance, it must be made clear to each and every citizen. Okay, and the third one is reliability in the sense that people or citizens ought to be able to rely upon the guidance. Okay, they must be citizens of society must feel some sort like of secure, okay, when they rely on those particular guidance or policies introduced by the government. The fourth one is correctness. Okay, what I mean by correctness here is that the guidance or the policies or the measures, okay, should align with the underlying laws. Okay, so because the law is something that is lively, is evolved around the situation, so it must be aligned with the underlying laws, the existing laws that we have now. Okay, um, the third one, it is the next is the accessibility. Okay, whenever the government introduce policy laws, it must be made accessible to all parties. Okay, so that everybody is in the know what happened and what is the modification, what is the new development, and so on and so forth. um Next is the scrutiny. Okay, it is last but not least that all these activities or actions by the government must be scrutinized. Okay, scrutinized. A kind of scrutiny is needed, okay, in order to ensure that each and every citizens, especially their rights and their rights and their right are preserved, and their fundamental freedoms has not been disturbed with. Okay, so now I will come to my conclusion. Okay, the conclusion is that uh, we are all knows that the pandemic um, has changed us, okay, our life in many ways that we never imagined before. Okay, however, we hope for blessing in disguise, and we should embrace these new norms with open hearts. Okay, the economy should pursue, okay, the law should evolve, okay, in order to correspond with this pandemic COVID-19. Okay, with that, I end my presentations, okay, and I would love to have questions later on. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor, for your presentation about how the law plays a role in ensuring economic sustainability during pandemic in Malaysia. And according to the speaker, Malaysia has taken several rules to curb the spread of COVID-19 outbreaks, beginning with the lockdown about 3 months from the COVID-19 Act 2020, and the last but not least, modification some rules. And of course, non-compliance will be offense. Yeah, Professor, that the point exactly we need to hear, Prof. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are going to the second speaker, Professor Jacob Bekesen. He currently serves as a head and professor in the Department of Criminology at the University of Limpopo. He got his doctoral degree in Tokiwa University, Japan, master degree in University of Pretoria, South Africa, and Bachelor of Art and Science with honors degrees in 3 different universities, which were in first University of Pretoria in 2000, University of Port Elizabeth 2001, and University of Pretoria as well in 2002, South Africa. These educational background are victimology, psychology, and criminology. Please, Professor, screen is yours.
Thank you all so very much for having me. I'm so glad to see some of my colleagues here. So I'm going to talk. So I'm a little bit different. I hope you guys can see my screen. Yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So my talk is a little bit different than my colleagues' talk that just went. My talk is innovative legal developments and economic sustainability. My talk is how to ruin an economy in 5 easy steps. South Africa. So the brief you guys sent me is how law plays a role, how the South African government used the law, and then an ideal type of law. But like some of you know, and some of you been to some of my lectures before, and like I always start off, I always say victim rights is human rights, and human rights is victim rights. A violation of a human right is a crime. Trying to protect people by violating their rights, either through government law, police, and courts, is still a violation and it's still a crime. There's this beautiful quote by Benjamin Franklin. Those who give up fundamental liberties for safety deserve neither. So what it means is if you give up your fundamental liberties, your fundamental human rights to feel safe, you don't deserve to feel safe or have fundamental human rights. It's a little bit extreme, but the idea is all rights are equal. So just so you all know, here is South Africa. There's Pretoria. So Limpopo is about, Polokwane is about there. You have Mozambique on the right, Zimbabwe, and these countries to the north of us. So just for those of you that don't know where South Africa is. So a brief history of South Africa. It was first colonized by the Dutch. The reason was to find a route, an easier route, a refill route to get to the Dutch East Indies. Then it was recolonized by the British. In 1961, the white minority took over the country and introduced apartheid. 1994, we had full constitutional democracy. Actually, on the 27th of April, 2 days ago, was our 28th year of celebrating our constitution, the end of apartheid. We're also part of the BRICS group, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. So our economy pre-COVID was extremely unequal. We had an unemployment rate of 28.18%. We had massive state-owned enterprise problems. Electricity generation we have issues with that. We have rolling blackouts. We used to have rolling blackouts, water problems. The reason for that is economic governance failures at the highest levels of state. We call this state capture. The previous president and his friends, it seems, because we're having a state capture commission chaired by a judge, is looking at what went wrong in the economy. And it seems a lot of the president's friends got jobs in state-owned enterprises, and they use those state-owned enterprises to enrich themselves at a massive rate with our tax money. This eventually in 2018 and 2019 led to a sovereign credit downgrading. For those of you that study economics and economic law, you know, the moment your your sovereign state's credit is downgraded. It's more difficult to get loans internationally for a country for development issues. So, 26 March 2020, South Africa declares a state of disaster in terms of COVID. Now, that means the country went into full lockdown. Now, South Africa has 5 lockdown levels. It's very restrictive. It is probably the most restrictive lockdown levels that you'll find anywhere in a free democratic country. So the law that was used is the State of Disaster Act. So because the pandemic is a disaster. However, the problem with using the State of Disaster Act is there's no parliamentary oversight. So every month, the state of disaster is extended by another month. There is no debate in parliament regarding that. So South Africa, a lot of legal experts said it would have been better if South Africa declared a state of emergency under the state of emergency law, which means after 6 months, Parliament had the right to debate and then stop the state of emergency. However, that's never happened. The government is now fighting other lawyers and political parties regarding the state of disaster act, because as you will see later on, the use of this state of disaster act in terms of the economy and how it influences people in South Africa is not thought out. So the people making the decision, right, what should be under a lockdown, what different levels of lockdown we will have, was first called the National Corona Command Council. Now it's just the National Command Council. So it's a small cabal of ministers that make decisions based on the state of disaster act. So like I said, we went into a full lockdown, level 5, which was extremely drastic, which they said was there to contain the spread of the virus. So among the things was there was a liquor ban or an alcohol ban, the sale, dispensing, distribution, transportation, except where alcohol is used for hand sanitizers and soap. There was no events or liquor licenses, no restaurants. The tobacco sales ban as well. So no tobacco could be brought, no products, anything. And we had a curfew from 8 in the afternoon till 5 in the morning. So you were not permitted to leave your own home between those times, except if you had a medical emergency, which was also problematic, because I will talk about that later. Or if you were an essential service provider, like a doctor or nurses. So what happened was the army was also deployed to assist the South African police. Now, because of the vagueness of these lockdown levels and what is permitted and what is not. Remember, the alcohol ban was you couldn't buy alcohol. It didn't prevent you from drinking alcohol in your own home. However, on the 11th or 12th of April, because it was late afternoon, 2020, the army, the South African army, murdered a guy called Collins Khoza. What happened? Well, Collins Khoza was in his house drinking beer. The army and the police illegally entered his premises. They saw open container of beer. The army heard the minister say alcohol is illegal, and they basically beat this guy to death. Now, the South African Police Service assisted the army by not protecting. During lockdown level 3, we were just coming out of lockdown level 4. Nathan Julies a child with Down syndrome left his house. He was allowed to, walking down the street to go buy something from a shop. The police stopped the child. The child didn't hear the police, and because the child didn't stop, the army, the police fired on this child. He's a child, and unfortunately killed the child. So now, if we look at the weird economic activity during the different lockdown levels, so some of the there's no better word to describe it as stupid. Lockdown level 4, the government banned hot prepared food at supermarkets. So you could buy cold prepared food, but not hot prepared food. Rotisserie chickens. During lockdown level 3, 4 and 3, the government restricted what clothes could be bought. Now, South Africans, we've got a good humor, so we call our new Minister of the Economy Minister Sandals, because sandals, open-toed shoes, was banned, which had nothing to do with keeping South Africans safe. Another thing, because the taxi industry is so politically connected, they allowed taxis to operate fully. So in a taxi, you have 15 seats. So 10 of those 15 seats could be full, but they banned hair salons. You could not operate, if you had a hair salon, you could not operate, but you could sit in a taxi. Again, same thing. They banned e-hailings like Uber and Taxify. And then they realized that a lot of South Africans use e-hailing to get from work to home and from home to work. So then the South African government had to unban or change the legislation so that people could use Uber and Taxify. Another thing the government did was, under the lockdown, which no other country did, we banned delivery services. So, for example, your food delivery services, your online Postmates and those things. The government decided to ban the use of delivery services. The caveat or the reasoning was it's unfair because poorer sections of the economy don't have access to delivery services, which is sort of also again stupid, because if you left the delivery services, banned them during this time, the delivery services would of course have delivered into the more lower economic areas. So yeah, that's just some of the ways you can ruin an economy by trying to do good, but not thinking what impact law will have on an economy. So why did it happen? Why did all these things happen? Because we had mixed messages from the government. We had the president coming in, for example, during lockdown level 3 and 4, saying tobacco will be unbanned. People that want to smoke can smoke, they can buy. Only to have that reversed by the minister in charge of the Disaster Management Act. So there was always a debate. Now, who's more important, the president or the minister? So the consequences of this lockdown and lockdown legislation, not only on the economy, but on the South African populace, 342,000 people have been arrested for violating these lockdown regulations. Some don't even know that they violated these lockdown regulations because it's so vague, it's so difficult. So fines, if you are caught violating lockdown registration, lockdown law, you can get a criminal record. However, 342,000 is a big number. So the National Police, National Prosecuting Agency, will never be able to prosecute so many people. So what the government did, and this was extremely insidious. So if the police arrest you, they always say like, no, no, but because you don't want to get COVID, why don't you sign the fine? You pay this fine, and then you're okay. We'll release you. So what the police don't tell people that they arrested, that by paying this fine, it's an admission of guilt. So the moment you do that, you automatically get a criminal record, which, if you think about it, I don't know how Indonesia or Malaysia work. The moment you have a criminal record, finding employment or staying employed, once that is found out, it is extremely difficult. It is discriminatory. People with criminal records against their names have more difficulty finding employment or keeping employment because of the stigma attached to it. We had massive increases in gender-based violence cases. Why? Because people were trapped in their houses with their abusers. And then police criminality increased. There's currently 700 cases being investigated by the independent police inspector regarding bribery, police brutality in South Africa. So, just talking now about the tobacco ban and the alcohol prohibition. So, the tobacco ban, the tax loss to South Africa for the ban period, it is 6 billion rand. Excise duty loss, it's 13 billion, it's about $1 billion. And at the last look, 300,000 jobs were lost. With the alcohol ban, South Africa lost 36.6 billion rand in retail sales. That is, again, about $2 to $3 billion. Again, 200,000 jobs were lost, and investment freezes because of this came through. Remember, investment is not just about making liquor. South Africa, we're famous for our wines. We make some of the best wines in the world. So investment into wine farms, into jobs at wine farms, that just died out. International transport of world famous wines from South Africa to the rest of the world also stopped immediately. So none of those money came in, none of the money went out. And we lost 200,000 jobs just in that area of the economy. Currently, remember our unemployment, I said, was 28.18. Currently, our unemployment rate is 42.6%. That is 11 million people out of a total population of 64 million. That is about 1 in 6 people in South Africa is unemployed currently because of the lockdown legislation. So the government introduced the government grant for everyone that qualify under a certain level of income. However, it is probably the biggest insult of a government grant ever done by a country. It is 350 rands, which is roughly $25, not per week, not per day, but per month. So if you're unemployed due to this COVID legislation, you are lucky enough to get $25 for a whole month to sustain you and your family. During level 5, the government loosened about half a trillion South African rands for economic recovery and PPE, personal protective equipment, buying stuff like that. However, 3 months later, it came out that a lot of this money was stolen due to corruption. So you would have people, a mask, a cloth mask would cost at most, if you buy it from a shop, it would cost 10 rands. So you'd have private companies or politically connected companies tendering for government contracts to give masks, but one mask would then be 150 rands, where it should be 10. So the consequence is also our tourism sector has been decimated. So what the government decided was they loosened a couple of billion rands again for everyone that operates in the tourism sector. So this is hotels, bed and breakfasts. However, this law had a caveat that it only if you were Black economic empowerment, fully compliant bed and breakfast or a hotel, would you be able to access. Now, the problem is COVID didn't just go after tourist venues owned only by exclusively Black people. It decimated the whole tourism sector. So there's now a court case where certain civil organizations have sued the government to take away this clause that it can only be Black people that in the tourism sector that can apply for this money, because their argument was whether you're Black or white, if you owned a guest house, the chances of you surviving economically because of the lockdowns is exactly the same. It's very low. Then the restaurant sector was decimated because of the lockdowns and restrictions. Again, we were credit downgraded further because of the lockdown restrictions and legislations and the crazy ideas government ministers had. Then we had a further growth in inequality. Remember, 11 million people is currently unemployed in South Africa. Also, we had ineffective law enforcement. There was the disproportionate use of force in poorer areas. Now, with the alcohol ban and the cigarette ban, the Black market in South Africa exploded. So we know the moment you have an exploding Black market, right, that means there's an increase of organized crime. And there's always the danger of organized crime and organized terror groups working together. Now, we have a problem. There is terror groups that is linked to ISIL or Daesh. So here is, let me just get my cursor. Can you guys see? Here is Mozambique. It's a country just to the east of South Africa. So remember, this is South Africa, here's Mozambique. So there's money flows to politicians and police. The Constitution, by the way, it's a constitutional violation of Section 10 of South African Constitution, privacy, bodily and psychological integrity, and the right to practice trade, has been argued by civil organizations that certain of this lockdown laws violate these clauses of the Constitution in terms of human rights. And the government lost. Now, not wanting to take the loss and go like, okay, we're sorry. Now the government's appealing these decisions to the Constitutional Court using our taxpayer money. So using money already given to the government to help in fighting unemployment is now being misspent trying to fight court cases about their own stupid use of laws. So just remember that. So on the 24th of March, ISIL attacked Palma. Palma is in Mozambique. Remember, it's very close to the South African border. Now, there's always a link between organized criminal groups and terror groups. Now, what research has shown us, due to this Black market in alcohol, and especially cigarettes, a lot of the cigarettes are coming from Mozambique. These illegal cigarettes are coming from Mozambique. Now, if you have a terror group in Mozambique fighting and beheading people, where do they get the money from? So this is one of the things the the government didn't. One of those unattended consequences, you have a big black market. Where do most of the things come from? It's either Zimbabwe or Mozambique. There's a terror group. So of course, what we know about international organized crime is organized criminals don't care what they do. They want money. And we know that terror groups don't care what they do. As long as they can get money to buy guns or have money to buy weapons, they will work with anything or anyone. Same with organized groups. So there's always this link between. Now, the last part is what should be done. We should have common sense laws that's backed by science, something like Malaysia did. It's so brilliant. There should be a focus on gender-based violence during a pandemic and how gender-based violence influences the economy of a society. We should return to a human rights ethos. Remember, we're trying to protect people, but you cannot protect someone by throwing them in jail. That's the thing. South Africa needs to train people in terms of how the economy works. We need investment-friendly laws. Government officials and ministers should remember that they are servants of the people. They get elected. They're not appointed by God. They are elected by the people, and they have to be servants of the people. And then there should be more focus in eliminating corruption in South Africa. Corruption is rife in this country, especially in government departments, in the policing departments, in the informal and formal economy. So we need to eliminate corruption for the economy to grow, to get investors if we have investment-friendly laws. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I'll wait later for your questions, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jacob. Professor speaks about how to read economic in 5 easy steps in South Africa. So it's like a different point of view. Yeah, some with Malaysia, South Africa also already have taken several steps to reduce the speed of COVID-19, like implement levels of lockdown, beginning in the 26 March 2020, about if I'm not wrong, 35 days of play with 5 levels lockdown. Several restrictions were applied, for example, banning drinking alcohol, banning delivery service that are considered as an unfair rule. So, Professor give the overview and consequence or the negative impact of lockdown. For example, job lost in South Africa, criminal and unemployment increase, investment freeze, and all of them generate economic failure. Such an informative presentation, Prof. Thank you very much. Okay, so before we are going to the next speaker, I would like to remind you, if you have any question, please write in a Zoom chat box. State your name, to whom your question is addressed, and also where you're from. Okay. All right, we are going to the next speaker. It's Professor Pujono. Professor Pujono is a full professor from private law department. His area of expertise is private law, especially in business law, and currently he serves as a vice dean of academic affairs, Faculty of Law, Universitas 11 Maret. Please, Prof, screen is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Bumi. I respect and be proud to be still here, Bapak Rektor, Prof. Jamal, and Prof. Kustiayu Ketut as a Dean of Faculty of Law, UNS, and maybe still here, Vice Deans, Pak Lego Karjoko and Pak Isarianto, that I respected, and all of great speaker that have attend. Oh yeah, sorry. For this international webinar, Prof. Yurjati. This is our second meeting. Maybe in 2018, I came to your university, with my team, if you still remember. And Prof. Seko, in 2018 too, we have invited you in Sunan Hotel. Maybe you still remember. Now we meet again in this international webinar and it's a competition. Bu Umi as a moderator and all of committee that prepare this webinar and all of participants, have a nice day. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah, I will present my presentation about sustainability of regulations, sustainability of law in pandemic era. Every major disaster has the potential to transform civilization, like culture, no exception, the global pandemic corona is currently being faced by mankind in various countries, also in Indonesia. COVID-19 has entered second wave. Some even mention that this is the third wave. Actually, we also don't know what the parameters is until we call it the second or the third waves, because so far we feel the waves haven't decreased. That's clear. Is a big wave has occurred in India, where the daily positive rate can be more than 300,000 people, and the death rate in India, every 4 minutes there is one death due to COVID-19. Well, in Indonesia, the figure positives has not decreased, still maybe 2,000 every day, and the death rate occurs for deaths every 1 hour. COVID makes us be more alert. Exactly, we should adapting with COVID. It is real COVID lives between us. Slowly but surely, we are seeing change in various aspects of civilization, various aspects in our culture. Starting from lifestyle, how to work and interaction each other. Yeah, it has influence social contract, social customer, technology information, innovation, energy, and government regulation. A new normal condition is approaching and overshadowing all of us. Increase depends on technology, starting the narrow of the space of civil liberties, the strengthening of the state's role in discipline citizen, the weakening of the economies and the others. When civilization change, when culture change, human behavior change. When human behavior change, laws maybe will be changed. And now we know that many regulation has issued because of COVID-19. In Indonesia, we know our constitution clearly state that Indonesia is constitutional state. It is explained that Indonesia state is rule state by law, rule of law, not based by matstat or mere power. Basically, state power must be limited by law, and human rights must be protected. Uh, Actually, after pandemic have been Indonesia, we can imagine and reform after COVID-19 crisis. But the crisis has not gone. Crisis still live between us. Uh, Actually, many opportunities for for reimagination and reform. Maybe next share mungkin, next presentation, next slide. Okay, next. Okay, yeah. This is that the condition that we can imagine, like increase national resilience to future crisis, maybe in medical device manufacturing, accelerate economic transition, uh, rebuild tourist sector, and enable genuine change. Nah, this is the condition that we can adapt with this condition, and we can reimagine these opportunities. But what's happened? Actually, if we know about the law, our law, in our regulation, when the pandemic hit, we became familiar with the quote "Salus Populi Supramalec Est." This is the Cicero quote. In the meaning that people's safety is the highest law. The meaning of this expression also does not contradict with the quote "Fiat Justitia Ruat Culum." However, this expression can also be interpreted wrongly, and it can be misused to justify ultra-vires of the government action in the name of the people's safety. Actually, for the maintaining the safety of the citizen, government has issued various kinds of regulation, including many. Next slide. Okay, and then, no, yeah, slide. Next slide again. Nah, this the regulation that has been issued by our government to overcome COVID-19. First, government regulation to do of law that now the purpose has become law number 2 of 2020. And this about regarding financial policy and state financial system stability for handling the COVID-19. And then second, the Perpu number 2 of 2020. This is concerning the third amendment of law number 1 of 2015, and then third governing regulation number 21st of 2020 concerning large scale social restriction (PSBB), and then President Decree Kepres number 11 of 2020, and then President Decree number 12, and President Decree number 7, and the other 7 regulation of the Minister of Health, Permenkes number 9 of 2020 concerning guidelines for large scale social restriction. Nah, and the others one menu regulation has been issued by the government, and various other restrictions were also issued to reduce the spread of COVID-19. The latest is took as a ban of mudik. That mudik is prohibited by the government. But if you want to celebrate something, not prohibited maybe. After we talk about this regulation that has been issued by our government, next slide. What's the result? Start maybe, yeah. What the result? Today's event case have risen again around 7,000 until 7 case every day. Vaccination is also not evenly distributed. Well, in the economic sector, not increase. The result is of survey by Indonesian Political Indicator Survey Institute shown that from 1,200 respondents, more than 50% answered that the national economic condition were bad during the pandemic, and the others said 25% responded answered moderate, and 8% answered the economic is very badly. This is the result, the condition, the real condition that happened in Indonesia. I mean that the infected case of pandemic of COVID-19 have not decreased, and then economic sector and development not increase. For example, if we say in problem of bank credit, we know that number of types of business that are not directly related to health, food, and security experience decline to income, such as tourism, hospitality, transportation, and industrial business. Other problems arise due to the decline of community income, difficulty in fulfilling obligations, such as debt, which has been used is one of the many sources of capital and operation costs. In the end, many companies, many people, and communities experience defaults. We call credit macet. Actually, Financial Services Authority (OJK) estimate the risk ratio for non-performing loans (NPL) in the banking sector will continue to increase, not decrease, but increase after in 2000 and 2020 increase. Now we hope that this 2021 will decrease, but the fact and the estimate from OJK not decrease but continue to increase. As a result of pandemic, NPL will be rose from 2.5% at the end of 2019 and to more than 3% in December 2020. In the end of the last year, it's increased, not decreased. Other data shows that increase in the ratio of non-performing loans, loan at risk or credit macet, which rose by more than 100%. In December 2019, credit macet (NPL) was recorded at only less than 10%, roughly in 9.90%, and skyrocketed to more than 20% by the end of 2020. For overcome this credit macet NPL, actually OJK issued many regulation too, like regulation about economic stimulus, and then the other regulation about counter clinical policy on the impact of the spread of coronavirus disease 2019 for non-bank financial services institution, and then Bank Indonesia as the regulation as the authority of lalu lintas pembayaran financial services also issued many regulation like regulation regarding provision of funds for certain economic activities to support handling the economic impact of coronavirus outbreak, financial, and then the others many regulation actually to counter clinical policy on impact of the spread of coronavirus outbreak. Next, this the condition of that happened because of the coronavirus disease, because pandemic. We have problem in our UMKM, pariwisata, and then the manufacture. The three sector of economic in Indonesia that impacted by corona disease, corona outbreak. Next slide. This next slide. Now we will say about the breakthrough. How about breakthrough to overcome this condition? In some case, the government seem to be confused about whether to save the economic or save health. Actually, we can using government powers to control the pandemic. Next slide. Nah, this is the discussion that never find the end. About the eggs or chicken. Who open first? Next slide. Okay. In law, we know the law of the exception. In the book of the Verjohn and Pasquino, the entitled typology of emergency powers said that characteristic of emergency law must have varieties of norm exception. So the others way in Islamic law, we know the rules of fiqh, kaidah fiqh, the three of rules of fiqh. First, darurat tabihu al-madoror. Second, taghayyur al-ahkam bitaghayyur. The third, taghayyur al-zimah wa al-amkinah. That means that the first condition of remark make what was originally prohibited to be allowed. Was originally haram to be makruh. Maybe not just makruh, maybe can be halal. The others changing of law is influenced by situation and condition as well as time and place. And then Islamic law actually in practice is not rigid, but can adapt to situation and condition, flexible. In Maqasid Syariah, this the highest level of legal purpose is determined to maintain the people, maintain the safety of the soul, like Al-Ghazali said, like Umar bin Khattab said. Just as in conventional law, we know salus populi suprema lex esto, Cicero's quote. The safety of the people should be in the supreme law. The welfare of the people shall be in the supreme law. This is the Maqasid Sharia, and then we know law as a tool of social engineering. This is the Maqasid Sharia identic with the utilitarianism principle in law. So the main idea is the saving or protection the people is the first priority. So after we have this priority, we shouldn't discussion about what's eggs or chicken first. Therefore, the government's choice of economic and health policies must make health a top priority, first priority. We had experiences, the decades of attention to legal preparedness. We have largely ensured that government posts significant legal authority to intervene and respond to the challenge faced due to COVID-19. When the pandemic arrived, however, government were slow to use their authority. The government leadership, coordination, even the parliament has been insufficient, inefficient to meet the national need, to meet the people need. We saw too much political interfere and too little competent coordination and regulatory enforcement. Many political interfere that make the job to overcome pandemic become chaos like this condition. We failure to respect and deploy expertise was front and center like scientists. It is difficult to imagine a successful response that does not put the center of disease control and prevention like Satgas COVID in the lead. But the lead Satgas COVID needs the independence and resources to develop reduce scientifically ground and apolitical guidance. So not political interfere, but a apolitical guidance. Similarly, incidents such as in Suez of using of chloroquine, phosphate, and hydrochloroquine sulfate after the Iran presidential teammate endorsement by Bashar in social media. This bad coordination, this bad purpose, bad influential. When the executive failure in mind, more than one of the authors advised to make something better, more effective response to overcome COVID-19 would have deployed with pre-testing, contact tracing, quarantine, isolation, and the more important is vaccine. State power to implement these disease control measures were ample on paper, but were used sparingly and limited by lack of testing, tracing, and vaccine. Absent the information and resources to impose targeted quarantine and isolation. This is the problem. State legislatures should fund expansion of testing, tracing, and vaccine capacity and engage community-based organizations to facilitate connection with diverse local communities through multilingual and culturally sensitive outreach efforts. Legislative or executive order also should provide incentive funding, programmatic support, and legal protection to assist UMKM, people with employment, housing, food access, physical and mental health care, social services, and income support, which will allow people to comply with public health guidance as well as mitigating economic and social harm. After we have the capacity to support regulation that guarantee to save our life, to save the people, be it infrastructure, human resources, and all related matters, only then we're ready to raise our economics. Beyond the other country, like China, New Zealand, and several other countries have entered the state of economic awakening. In China, have been released marathon that has participants more than 12,000 people. Well, we are in Indonesia still debating chicken or egg first. Actually, government has many authority to make it happen. Government, I said again, has many authority to make it happen. So what we do? First, law enforcement to make guarantee of justice and legal certainty. This that the government should make the first priority, to make priority in safely and save the people. And then the other, simplifying the policy, simplifying the regulation, make it sure to be understand. and make it sure in investment and creativity in innovation. Maybe if this our recommendation uh, take by the government, we will overcome COVID outbreak. That's all my presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bumi, hello Bumi. I get back to you, Bumi. Bu Tika or Bumi. Hello, Bumi.
Okay, I'm sorry, Prof. My connection was bad. Okay, thank you, Prof. Can you hear my voice, Prof?
Yep.
Hello.
I finished my presentation, Bumi.
Yeah. Can you hear my voice? I'm sorry because
yeah, I can hear your voice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prof, about your presentation about sustainability of law. According to the speaker, Indonesia has released some policy to handle COVID-19. About 7 rules have mentioned, and several restrictions were applied, like banning mudik. As you know, mudik is an Indonesian term for the activity where migrants return to their hometown or village during or before major holidays. And as well, Indonesia applies social distancing as well. Furthermore, some obstacles comes like non-performing loans, so that Financial Service Authority, we call OJK, overcome this crisis by regulate or amendment some rules. Thank you, Professor, for your presentations. Now we are going to the question and answer session. So yeah, we can see on the chat box, there are several questions. So I will select one. In the first session of question and answer, I will select three questions. So the first question is come from Hida. Okay, Hida from ONS. The question is for Professor Jacob. Hello, Professor. Are you still here?
Yes, I am. I am.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I will read the question. When the government banned the delivery service, there is an economic problem caused. Is there a solution for the government to buy their daily needs? Is there any public protest? Because in Indonesia, we often use a delivery service to fulfill our daily needs, food or package. So I can't imagine if the delivery service got banned in Indonesia. So please, Prof.
That is such a good question. Did the government do anything for the daily needs of people? Short answer, no. Long answer, no. Did people protest? But see, this is the problem. So that was lockdown level 4 and 5. You couldn't get out of your house. So you couldn't protest that this is a stupid ban, because if you go out, the police or the army would do horrible stuff to you. So people protested online, and we know online protest is as effective as throwing water on a grease fire. It doesn't put anything out. So yeah, the government did nothing. Eventually, they unbanned the delivery services because people had packages, people had food deliveries that needed to be delivered. For example, we have like an Amazon type of thing, and a lot of people. And this is the thing that also now happened because of 4IR and COVID is people don't go to shops anymore, right? You'd rather go on a website, order food, order clothes, whatever, and have it delivered because people don't want to go outside and be in contact with potential other people that have COVID. So the government eventually realized that, oh, maybe this is actually a safer option. And that's why my presentation was about how if you don't use common sense when you make laws, this is the type of idiocy that happens. Just to show you guys another stupid law. So when we went through our second wave, or to prevent our second wave, during the Easter holiday, the government rebanned alcohol. But the ban was you cannot buy alcohol at a liquor store or a supermarket, right? But you can buy it at a restaurant. So you cannot drink at your home or buy from a supermarket, take it home and drink it there. No, you have to go to a restaurant and drink alcohol if you want it at a restaurant with other people around you that could be potentially infected with COVID. You know, so it's this whole, there is no logic to it. But that was a very good question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for your answer, and I hope it can answer your question, Hilda. Okay, we're going to the next question. I would like to read Nadine Raina from UNS. The question is for Professor Pujiono. Can you hear me, Prof?
Yeah, Bu.
Yeah. So we know that everyone has an important role in order to respond to the situation COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Prof. Pujiono, what do you think a student can do to help deal with the COVID-19 pandemic, both in terms of emphasis on the number of COVID-19 survivors, as well as economic recovery in Indonesia? Oh, so long. Furthermore, is the current government policy already the right choice in dealing with the pandemic? Because in several aspects, I think the government is still considered less firm. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Pandemic has many interests, not just financial, economic, but also political interest. This is the problem. We know, like this social minister that in social assistant that and not that's the ex-minister of social affairs, the social assistant bantuan sosial that should have been used to help the small community was corrupted by the minister and business group. That bantuan sosial, social assistant that should make UMKM live again, UMKM increase, corrupted by minister and business and other elite business group. This is the problem, our problem, that many interfere, many interests in to overcome COVID pandemic. The other interests like political fields, buzzer lines, as an army that are created naturally make handling conflict just a matter of winning or losing, your group or my group. This creates social disharmony. Unfortunately, this is nurtured by political resources for the sake of personal and group ambition. Maybe targeted in 2040 maybe, or the other election. Apart from that, the wrong choice of the government, which is instead using influencers rather than scientists This is the next problem. So, like we know the case of vaccine Nusantara vaccine, which is supposed to be science problem. So, if this is science problem, can be solved before Kementerian Kesehatan and Kementerian Kesehatan, but no, vaccine Nusantara has become a political problem about my group, your group, about my team, your team, and the others. This make the way to overcome pandemic become so difficult. That's for me.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. I hope it can be answer your question, Nadine. Next question is come from Aulia Fitri from ONS to Prof. Zuriati Muhammad Yusuf. Hello, Prof.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is limitation policies during a pandemic and efforts to increase economic activity seems incompatible. What is the policy model that can reconcile these two things?
Okay, thank you, Aulia, for the questions. Okay, yes, I mentioned about the limitation period that has been extended. However, it is within the time period. For example, if the 6 years is going to expire in 31st August, it is extended until 31st of December 2020. It is not meant that the limitation is extended forever. It is just as a cooling period to give an extra time to the parties, okay, to be able to reconcile or to solve their problems. Okay, however, it does not ban the parties from taking an action altogether. Okay, it means that it is only a temporary time frame. Okay, an extended one is given. Okay, so that the party can prepare themselves for the litigation. Okay, so it is more or less as a cooling period for the parties. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Hope that answer can answer your question, Aulia. Okay, we are going to the second section of question and answer. So I will choose 3 questions. First question is from Deni Setiawan. It's addressed to Prof. Seko. Prof. Yeah. The question is, from the conclusion before, it is said that we can basically overcome the problems of economic impact in South Africa by returning the policy to human rights approach and also by enacting law enforcement in corruption. My question is, sometimes in corruption enforcement, when we already enforce judicial procedures in order to give the corruptor the fairest judgment, there is a chance for the enforcement itself will be collide with some aspect of human rights. This is just one of the examples. Some aspects of judicial enforcement collide each other and become an obstacle of law in establishment, not only in South Africa, but to the most of countries, Indonesia included. How we deal with it? Thank you. Such a long.
Thank you. Thank you. It's actually a good question. And that's a very theoretical question for a master's and maybe a PhD in law student. So if you have at the basis of your constitution and your criminal law and law enforcement human rights, then there shouldn't be a conflict between law enforcement and human rights, or because you would understand that corruption is a violation of human rights. It's an individual human right violation, and it's a societal human right violation. So if you place human rights, individual and group human rights, as a basic core of law enforcement and law and criminal, especially criminal law, you know, then you won't have this conflict. For example, just think about, what do we call the justice system? We call it the criminal justice system, which is a misnomer. It's a wrong thing to call it, because if we call it the criminal justice system, what do we put first? We put the criminal first. We should do away with the idea of a criminal justice system and bring something called a justice system, because the focus in a criminal justice system is on the criminal, not on justice. Ne? So if you make human rights the concept of that, the foundation of any criminal law, any economic law, then by its own base, you won't have so much conflict. I hope I explained well enough.
Thank you, Prof. I hope that can answer your question, Danny. All right, we are going to the next question from Dimas David. It is addressed to Prof. Pujiono. The concern I have with executive powers is not really about them being used. It's how long, and that question can only be answered when we know the pandemic is over. But from some of the expert medical advice, this pandemic may be with us like seasonal flu indefinitely. What happens to executive powers then,
Yeah.
Professor?
We cannot imagine that when pandemic will be over. I mean, like I said that pandemic COVID living among us, living between us. So we should adapt with this pandemic. How the next step? The next step is our economic step, our healthy step. Includes a pandemic, include COVID. I mean like this. I mean like we should make health a top priority. We should make people safe top priority. Can you imagine how the economic will grow if the executor, if the perpetrator is not healthy? Practically, in this step, in health is to make sure the vaccine is evenly distributed. The vaccine now is like luxury goods. So we should make sure that a vaccine is evenly distributed. After vaccine distributed, no, we can through the other step like economics or the others. But if the vaccine is not evenly distributed, this not the guarantee about the next step, like the economic or uh, the other lens. That's for me.
Thank you, Prof, for the answer, and I hope that can answer your question, Dimas. And I think it would like to be the last question because the webinar will end in 11 a.m. So I will choose Dea Yuan Dita questions from 1S to Prof. Zuyati. Good morning, Prof. I want to ask how Malaysia deals with the halal vaccine issue, which I feel is being questioned by a Muslim majority country, such as Indonesia and Malaysia. Thank you. Please, Prof.
Right. Thank you for the questions. Okay. I think in majority of Muslim countries, there's a lot of debates regarding the vaccines um, in order to curb the spread of coronavirus. In Malaysia, I think it is the collective responsibilities of all parties, okay, to take part in order to give confidence to the public, okay, that this is the most safety measures that we need to take in order to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Okay, it is the role of the Ministry of Religious Affairs, okay, the individual with the strong religious backgrounds who have the opportunity to educate people that once Malaysia has decided to proceed with this vaccine for coronavirus, it is safe, it is halal, and it is for the benefit, for the mazhab, for the public interest as a whole. So um, um, although in the first place it is quite havoc and issues, but now people are ready to accept, and people are responding well with the Malaysians effort in providing vaccines to the citizens. Okay, so I think it is also the role of the media when you report when you report things. Okay, the news. Okay, it must be not a fake news, okay? Not propaganda or whatnot. Okay, so that is my response to the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the answer, and I hope the answer can answer your question, Dea Yunandita. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for you all speaker for sharing your insight and talk and knowledge today. And we really apologize for unanswering questions. Actually, we will still have a lot of questions here, but unfortunately, the webinar time is up. So I would like to conclude the webinar today. So nowadays, all countries around the world are facing the disasters of COVID-19 outbreaks. Several steps have been implemented to overcome the disaster, but yeah, it generates a positive and negative impact. But all governments do their best to cope the spread of COVID-19. Thank you. We do hope you gain a valuable knowledge for this webinar, and we do hope you always stay healthy. Thank you for participating us today. We hope to see you again next time. Thank you very much for all speakers. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Zuriati. Thank you, Prof. Jeko and Prof.
Thank you
Puchi.
very much for inviting me.
Yeah. Okay, we come back to the MC, Bu Tika.
Thank you very much to all the honorable speakers for the great presentation. Now it is time to hand over the certificate to the speakers from the moderator. Please with me to give the certificate to all the speakers.
Yeah.
The first certificate will be given to Professor Zuriati. Please for the computer to give the certificate. The first certificate
Butika, maybe you can make your voice little harder. Butika. Yeah.
Okay. Please wait a moment. The committee still prepare the certificate. Okay, Miss Umi, this certificate, the first certificate, is given to Professor Zuriati. Please, Miss Umi.
I can't see the certificate, MC. I can't see the certificate in the screen, on the screen. The certificate has not appeared yet.
Already appeared, Miss.
Oh, can you see that, Prof. Suryati?
Yes, yes, I can see it.
So the trouble
Thank you
is,
very much.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm sorry, the connection was bad. Okay, this is certificate for you, Prof.
Thank you very much.
The second certificate will be given to Professor Jago.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was fun speaking to everyone here.
Thank you, Prof.
And the third certificate will be given to Professor Pujiono.
Thank you, committee, for the certificate. Thank you to meet all participants here. Thank you for Mr. Jeko. Thank you for Mr. Suryati Yusuf.
Now, this is the time that has been waiting for. The announcement for the best essay of innovative legal development and economic sustainability during pandemic COVID-19. The best essay will be announced by Mr. Kukuh Tejomurti, a doctoral candidate. Please, Mr. Kukuh, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good day everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
for your
wabarakatuh.
time today in this international webinar entitled Innovative Legal Development and Economic Sustainability During Pandemic COVID-19. Okay, I would like to announce the 5th best papers for Bachelor of Law categories. Yeah, we are the committee has reviewed approximately 40 papers, and we have to consider and determine into the 5 papers. Yeah, so I would like to announce the 5 best papers for Bachelor of Laws categories. The first papers for the author Alvin Devote Azaria Ardana. Yeah. Okay, wait. The first author. Wait a moment. Okay. Okay. Alvin Devote Azaria Ardana, Gusti Faza Alia, Gatot Isnawan Jati Budi Abiyudo. They write papers entitled Optimizing the Equity Crowdfunding Policy to Increase Indonesia's Independent Economy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. The second best papers is for the author Thorik Nur Wahid, Tri Cahyono, and Wulandari Putri Tutami. Yeah. They write papers entitled Implementation of the GSR program for MS. In the context of assisting economic improvement during the pandemic period. Then the third papers for authors Muhammad Farda Rizki Putra, Muhammad Solahuddin Al-Ayubi, and Yunita Rahmawati. The right papers entitled The Revitalizing Legal Protection of the Home Industry as an Economic Resilience Strategy during the Pandemic. Then the fourth, for the authors Adimas Fauzan Rastika Fendi, Adinda Ratih Nuriana, Zenia Aziz Khairunisa. The right papers entitled The Urgency to Accelerate the Ratification of the Bill on Restrictions on Currency Transactions as a Form of Public Health Protections during the COVID-19 pandemic. The fifth, for the authors Sendari Waskita Putri, Amelia Fitri, and Jenny and Kirana. The right papers entitled Investment Works as an Acceleration Instrument, the Indonesian Economy during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right, congratulations for all authors from the Bachelor of Laws categories. And the next, we are the committee also consider and choose 5 best papers for Master of Laws categories. The first authors, Ayuta Puspa Citra Zuama. She writes papers entitled Utilizations of Artificial Intelligence in Contract, Drafting and its Challenge for the Legal Sectors in Indonesia. Then the second paper for authors Fabiola Nurul Octavianingrum. She writes papers entitled Urgency of Cyber Law Development in Facilitating the Security of Economic Transaction as an Effort to Economic Development after the Pandemic COVID-19. Then the third paper for author Yuni Latifah. She writes papers entitled COVID-19 Pandemic, Challenge of UMKM. Okay, then the fourth paper for authors Agung Bayu Dewa Broto. He writes papers entitled Effectiveness of Implementation of the PPNBM Elimination Policy on the Growth of Automotive Industry during COVID-19 pandemic. Then, the fifth paper for authors Aldi Putra. He writes papers entitled Government E-Policy Toward Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises and Electrical Assistance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, for the authors, congratulations to you. Yeah. And I have information from the committee. We still have agenda at 12 past 30 for the papers presentations. Yeah, from all authors. Yeah, from all authors. Yeah, for the Bachelor of Law categories and Master of Law categories. Okay, thank you very much. I am Kukuh Tejomurti as the committee and the reviewer with Dr. Fatma Nuchiha. Yeah. Thank you very much for your attention today. For Mr. Professor Jako, Professor Yati Yusuf, and Professor Pujono Swadi. Thank you very much. For the Master of Ceremony, Tika Andaresni, this is your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kukuh Tejomurti. Alhamdulillah, thanks God, the webinar from the beginning till the end was running well without any doubts. To all the honorable speakers, we kindly thank you for all the contribution given in the speech. It is really meaningful and useful for every one of us in this webinar and for the knowledge nowadays. We wish you God will give something in return. Amen. Thank you to all of you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Jeko, Prof. Zuryati, Prof. Puji.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I miss you guys. Hopefully one day soon we can travel again.
Yeah.
Of course, Professor. Thank you, Prof. Zuryati.
Welcome.
Yono, Prof. Jeko.
Mrs. Suryati and Mr. Jeko come to our university.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Actually, we propose other program, Ms. Suryati. Merdeka
Yeah.
Belajar. We call Merdeka Belajar, that you can open your class and my student will join. Jadi
Yeah, it's a good idea.
mahasiswa Fakultas Hukum UNS nanti bisa mengambil mata kuliah di UUM, di Legal Corpus UUM, dan nanti ketentuan teknisnya misal lain-lain we can discuss another time.
Okay.
Professor Zuryati and Professor Jeko, please joining with us again at 12 past 30.
All right.
Okay, so we can leave this Zoom ya, Bu Tika.
Yes, for a while, all of you can sign out from Zoom and see at 12 past 30.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry. Good morning, almost afternoon. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.